the Marco watercolor pencils. I am using 513 for blush, 558 as the shade, and 533 as the deeper shade. So here I start by using the brown number 558 pencil to lightly draw in the shadows. I do the shading very lightly since I'll be going over the top of them later with a flesh color. And this is watercolor, not gouache, which I can't pronounce. So I continue, I just use number 558, which is just kind of almost like a burnt sienna brown, but lighter. And I put that where all of the shadows go. I'm not even 100% sure they still make this specific batch of the watercolor pencils, because these I've had for several years now and I just never got around to using them. But for the most part, they tend to work pretty good so far from what I've seen on this video while I've been using them on this video. I think I run into some problems later on with them, but I'll go into that more later. I've now switched to the blue 533, and I'm going in and I'm just putting it in places where I want the darkest shadow to go, and underneath the lip, because that stuff tends to happen when you're outside under a big blue sky like my fairy is. And now I've come in with the pink 513, and I'm putting it on her cheeks and her eyes and on the tip of her nose and her lips. I make sure I leave a spot for highlights. I also come in and I put a little bit of blush on her shoulders, on her collarbones, and the tips of her ears where the light hits it. I put the main bulk of the color at the outer edge, and then when I use the water brush, I push it in towards the rest of the area that I want covered so that it gets a smoother blend. And if I get too much water, I just use a napkin to wipe it up. And if I find, once I've added the water, that the color is too saturated, I'll wet it down some more and pick it back up with the tissue again. So I'm not sure if I'm using my Aquanaut or Royal and Langnickel Aquaflow. I took them all out of their boxes and now I don't know which is which, sorry, but I tend to just use them anyway. They all work the same, and I just use them based on what size I need. The Aquanaut brushes only came in a size of 3 different ones, and Royal Langnickel ones came in 5, so I swap between them all the time. They tend to work especially well with watercolor pencils because you can get really good control over exactly how much water you put on there with just a tiny little squeeze. It doesn't matter that this is still kind of really light work, because when I go back over it with the flesh color later, If any of the shadows or the blushing gets paled out too much, then I'll just go back over them a little bit more. But this gives a good base for starting with. A nice little underpainted structure for it. Now I just have to let it dry and then come back and paint.